Dear students, we are discussing about project audit. In this lecture, we will discuss some more important concepts on project audit, that is essential of an audit or evaluation. In the previous lecture, I have discussed about the project audit. In this lecture, we will study more concepts with respect to audit. So, the agenda for this lecture is some essentials of an audit or evaluation, then what should be the component of audit or evaluation team, then what is the importance of access to records for auditors, then access to project personnel and others, then measurement, then we will study some note on auditor or evaluator, then we will discuss about charts, written reports and first hand observations, how this will be useful for auditing and what are the advantages and disadvantages. Then we will discuss about 7 golden rules for auditors. The same way we will study about 7 golden rules for auditee. So, some essentials of an audit or evaluation. For an audit or evaluation to be conducted with skill and precision, several essential conditions must be met to be credible and generally acceptable to senior management, the project team and the client. So, audit evaluation team must be properly selected, all records and files must be accessible and free contact with the project members must be preserved. The choice of audit evaluation team is critical to the success of the entire process. It may seem unnecessary to note that team members should be selected because of their ability to contribute to the audit procedures. Still, sometimes the members are selected merely because they are available. The size of the team will generally be a function of the size of the complexity of the project. When the complexity is more, we need to have larger team. So, for a small project, one person can often handle all the tasks of the audit team, but for a larger project, the team may require representative from several different constituencies. So, these are the different areas, typical areas that might furnish your audit evaluation team members. They are the project itself, then the project manager, then the project owner, the project sponsor, the project management office or program office manager, the accounting, controller department, technical feasibility areas, the funder, the marketing department, the senior management, the purchasing and asset management, the personnel management and the legal and contract administration department. So, when you make your audit team, we should have members from these areas, so that the auditing can be done very effectively. So, the main role of audit team is to conduct a thorough and complete examination of the project or some pre-specified aspect. The team must determine which item should be brought to the management's attention. It should report information and make recommendations in such a way to maximize the utility of its work. The team is responsible for constructive observation and advice based on the training and experience of its members. Members must be aloof from personal involvement with the conflicts among project team staff and from rivalries between projects. So, the audit team is highly disciplined process. All team members must willingly and sincerely subject themselves to that discipline. The next one is access to records. For audit team to be effective, it must be free access to all information relevant to the project. This may present some problems on government projects that may be classified for reasons of national security. In such case, a subgroup of audit team may be formed from qualified individuals. Most of the information needed for audit team will come from the project team's records and those of project management office and from various departments such as accounting, personnel and purchasing. So, the audit team is responsible for data collection, not the project management team, while the project team is responsible for keeping the project records up to date throughout the project's life. Here the role of audited team is to collect the data, but the role of project team is they have to maintain up to date information about all the data, but that will be accessed by the audit team. In addition to the formal record of the project, some most valuable information comes from documents that predate the project. For example, correspondence with the funder that led to the request for proposal, minutes of project selection committee, minutes of senior management committees that decided to pursue a specific area of technical interest. Clearly, project status report, relevant technical memoranda, change orders, information about the project organization and the management methods, and financial and resource usage informations are also important. So, the audit team may have to extract much of these data from other documents because the required information is often not in the form needed. So, data collection is time consuming, but careful work is vital for an effective and credible audit. Now, we will discuss about access to project personnel and others. So, the audit team should maintain free communication with the project team members and other organizational members with project knowledge. One exception is the contact between audit team and the funder. Such contacts are not made without clearance from the senior management. So, this restriction would hold even when the funder is represented on the audit team and should also hold for in-house clients. In any case, several rules should be followed when contacting the project personnel. So, care must be taken to avoid misunderstanding between audit team members and the project team members. The project personnel should always be made aware of the in progress audit. Critical comment should be avoided. Particularly serious is the practice of delivering on the spot, off the cuff opinion and remarks that may not be appropriate or represent the consensus opinion of the audit team. Next, we will discuss about the measurement, because measurement is an important aspect before going for auditing. Then only we can say whether there is a deviation from the baseline or not. So, measurement is an integral part of auditing process. Several aspects of project that should be measured as apparent and fortunately relatively easy to measure. For the most part, it is not difficult to know when a milestone has been completed, because these things are very easy to measure. It may be difficult to tell when a chemical experiment is finished, and it is almost impossible to tell when a complex computer program is finally bug free. So, largely, however, milestone completion can be measured adequately. There is a theoretically acceptable solution to such measurement problems, but there are politically acceptable solutions. All the cost revenue allocation decisions must be made when the various projects are initiated. If this is done, the battle are fought upfront and the equity cost revenue allocation ceases to be so severe an issue. If allocations are made by formula, major conflict is avoided or at least mitigated. Now, this is a baseline marketing data for a new product. So, from this form, what we can do? We can collect some informations. For example, total market share, we can say what is the minimum, then what is the best estimate, what is the maximum for first year. So, over a period of time, with respect to total market share, we can find out minimum, maximum and best estimate. So, this measurement will be useful for further auditing process. Next, we will discuss about some note to the auditor evaluation, that is about nothing but the rule of engagement. In the context of auditing, the rule of engagement refers to set of guidelines or procedures that auditors follow when conducting an audit. These rules are designed to provide a framework for the audit process, ensuring consistency, objectivity and adherence to the professional standards. The rules of engagement help define the auditor's scope, the auditor's responsibilities and the expectation of both auditor and the auditee. So, what are the key elements of the rules of engagement of an auditor? The first one is the scope of the audit. So, we clearly defining the areas or process to be audited, then identifying the period covered by the audit. The next element, objectivity and independence, emphasizing the need for auditors to remain impartial and independent. and addressing any potential conflicts of interest. The third element is audit methodology. So, outlining the specific audit approach or methodology to be used, then describing the techniques and tools that will be employed during the audit. The next element for rules of engagement is called communication protocol, establishing channels of communication between the auditor and the auditee and defining reporting requirement and timeline for communication of findings. The next element is documentation standards, specifying the documentation practices and standards to be followed and ensuring that audit papers are organized, complete and in compliance with relevant standards. The next element is confidentiality and security. So, addressing the confidentiality of audit information, then outlining procedure to safeguard sensitive data and information. The next element is ethical considerations. Here the reinforcing adherence to professional ethics and codes of conduct, then addressing ethical dilemma that may arise during the audit. The next element in the rules of engagement is called client cooperation. So, outlining the expectation for cooperation from the auditee and defining the responsibility of auditee and providing access to information and personnel. The next note to auditor or evaluator is permission to enter the system. Previously we talked about the rules of engagement. The next element is permission to enter the system. It refers to the authorization granted to the auditors to access and examine an information system, network or specific IT resources as part of audit agreement. This permission is crucial for auditors to perform their evaluation, assess controls and gather evidence related to the security, integrity and functionality of the system. Now, we talked about collecting informations. Now, suppose for the purpose of auditing, suppose the three type of information is given, for example, chart, written report and first hand observations. We will discuss about what are the advantages and disadvantages. Suppose the chart is available, it is easy to read and understand and useful in pattern recognition during data analysis like trends, seasonal cycles and non-seasonal cycles. What are the disadvantages of chart? Can create false impressions due to the distortion of measurement access that often occurs. So, the next way to get the information is written report. What is advantage? Can convey subtle point, can convey large amount of information very effectively, may provide a clear hierarchy of detail. What are the disadvantages of written report? May confuse more than inform the reader. The another type of information that we can measure is from the first hand observation. So, what is the advantage? It provides primary data about performance in a system or environment. The disadvantage is it is subject to errors such as selective perception of events and inattention to small details, and it is used to observe symptoms, but it does not necessarily reveal what causes these symptoms in the first place. Now, we will discuss about 7 golden rules for an auditor. So, the auditor's behavior should be neutral. Rudeness or a nervous approach will lead to resistance. Being overly friendly may convey the message that the audit is not serious. The second rule is the auditor asks open questions, then allows the time for answers and listen carefully. The third rule is in most cases the auditor should avoid naming names. The point is not to attack the person, but to check the conformance to the requirements. The fourth rule is the auditor should communicate effectively with the management. The fifth rule is the auditor refrains from giving recommendations regarding the actions because it can compromise the audit's objectivity. The auditor should report any safety issues regardless of the audit scope. The seventh golden rule is the auditor is fluent in the agreed upon language of the audit. So, these are the 7 golden rules for auditor. Now, we will see the 7 goals for auditee. So, the documents are identified and updated with the proper classification. The second rule is the order and cleanliness of the work environment must be respected. The auditee knows and applies the references. The fourth rule is the auditee are punctual, available, factual and inspire confidence. The auditee does not give answers they are unsure, and If needed, seek help from their manager or colleagues. The sixth rule is for auditee, if a non-conformity is found, the auditee acts according to the defined reaction rules. The seventh golden rule is answers are transparent and do not compromise the confidentiality of the informations. Dear students, in this lecture I have continued with the previous lecture point, that is project auditing. Here we discussed about what should be the component of a audit or evaluation team, then what is the importance of access to records and what are the importance to access to project personnel and others, then how to collect and measure the information for purpose of auditing, that we have discussed. Then we discussed some note on auditor or evaluator. Then we discussed about the advantage and disadvantages of charts, written reports and first hand observations. Then I have given you 7 golden rules for auditor and auditee. Thank you.